All right, what is up, friend and fellow anti-netters? It is I, Scott Shepard, here on a Wednesday at, let's see, it's a 2:34 post-meridium. And I wanted to give you a little update. For the past little while, I've been working on a top secret project, and it's not open to the public. It's something that if you know about it, then you know about it for a reason. It's because I'm keeping it super small, super exclusive, and it's, in these videos up to this point, I've been talking about the really detailed tactics around knowledge development and the anti-net Zettelkasten. And, that is almost like the small tactical components of actually getting to where a lot of people want to go. Where do a lot of people want to go? They want to become writing machines. They want to create deep, well-written, well-thought-out, well-processed writing that is essentially worth reading in the first place. But the other component, and where a lot of people want to go, is they essentially want to build out what I call the neo-intellectual life. And what that is essentially creating a lifestyle wherein you get to do what you want to do every single day. That is, you want to read, think deeply, write, reflect on your reading material, and produce value, usually in the form of written output. And there's other ways of producing that value. And then you want to deliver that value to people you actually value. And that is essentially what the Neo-Intellectual Institute, this very top secret thing, and it's not open to the public. It's like, if you know about it, you know about it for a reason, because you're essentially in my community. I know, like, and trust you, and I've reached out to you. So 50% of my time lately has been spent on that. The other 50% of my time has been spent pushing along my massive beast of a textbook on the anti-net Zettelkasten. That is essentially my take and flavor of the Luhmannian analog Zettelkasten, the knowledge development system used to produce, insanely deeply complex, thought through, and pieces of written material and work. And I just got done editing a chapter today for that, and I edited the second step in knowledge development revolves around something called extraction. How do you extract the material from the things that you read? And in this chapter, which is, that's what's up behind me, I list out some various types of extraction methods and strategies, and I want to go through those with you right now, right here, and, well, hopefully do it in a way that doesn't bore you freaking to death. So anyway, let's turn this thing around and get to it. Okay, so here's the deal. There are 4 types of extraction methods, and by extraction, I mean, how do you extract the thoughts and observations that you have while reading, out of the book and into your own context so that it can compound and you can use it for in the future. So the first type is the type I used while reading this book, early on while reading this book. It's a collection of academic papers from various scholars who have studied the knowledge techniques of reading from various early modern Europe, essentially. And when reading this book, one method, this is an extraction method I call book to main card method. And in this method, you guys have probably done this before. I've done it for 15 years without putting a label on it. You essentially read a book, and then when you come across an idea, you just have a note card. I use in these cases 3x5-inch cards because it forces me to be more concise with my observations. And you just read the book, and then you put your observation on a dedicated main card. I used 3x5-inch cards. So for this one, you can see that it says John Locke's, quote, observation notes are similar to Luhmann's bibliography notes, aka lit notes, in that they were short comments connected with books he was reading. Now, this is pretty straightforward. Now, the pros with this type of method is you're seemingly skipping a step, and you would think it would be seemingly faster to read books and then file these ideas for later. But there's a few cons to this. First off, you realize that when you do this method, you end up getting bogged down every few pages and writing in a dedicated main card for a note that may not necessarily deserve it. And the second thing is that you end up not letting these ideas, this is just, a very brief observation. the problem is that this isn't really that valuable. What's more valuable is you want to actually have this little observation sit and ruminate for a little bit so that you can reflect on it and then further refine it in order to create like a 4 by 6 inch main card note, and in the form of a reflection that can then be, that you then think through and further process, so that by the time you get to your main manuscript, it will be a little bit more, I guess, thought out. Like this is essentially, if I include this in my main manuscript piece of written work, it's just like, cool, thanks for giving me that little snippet, but how does this tie into what you are actually writing about? So that is essentially, this is the book to main card method. Now, the next method, and I played around with this like a year and a half ago. I created my own. I call this is like marginalia are what these are called. You essentially, while reading a book, you kind of note in the margin, like a thought or an important passage. I came up with my own scheme so that whenever I would read, a book and see a concept that I would want to like perhaps elaborate on, I would write C next to it, which stands for concept. I also, you can see this one says V. That means vocab. Like I would put a little V so that after I'm done for like an hour reading, I would go back and, perhaps create like an entire card for this concept, or, create like a vocab card to look up this term so that I can like kind of implant it into my mind so that the next time I come across the word, I would know what it is. I also, would use P. This means prose. It's like good prose. And so I tried this method for a while. You would think that it would save time because you don't get bogged down like, writing out notes, but it's kind of the similar thing that what ends up happening when you highlight books, and like especially like Kindle highlights. You end up just selecting, for extraction, way too much material. You can see it's like, man, I just so much stuff during this. And then it's like the really brilliant concepts ends up getting crowded out by just the average basic stuff. So that is my experience. I stopped this after a while because the cons with this is that you end up essentially crowding out, and this is something that I think happens a lot in digital. It's like you end up crowding out the brilliant pieces of information with just like the seemingly interesting ones, right? So that is this method. This is essentially like you can come up with your own conventions. I call this like the CVP marginalia method. I tried it for a while, did not work. That's what I found. The other type of method of extracting information and thoughts from your readings is essentially like the traditional marginalia method, where you write essentially your thought or the note in the margin. The pro with this is that you can seemingly get down your observations quickly, and then later on, after you're done reading, you can then go and further process them. These are essentially you're staging the thought, and then you can go back and process them into more detail and reflect upon them. Now, that's kind of like the pro. It would seemingly allow you to not get bogged down while reading. The con is that you can end up just writing like way too much, and then you get just bogged down by, like, I don't know, you just get in this flow. And then what ends up happening is that after this, like all of your note, A, you end up marking up a book, and then B is that all of the, core observations are then locked away in the book. And one of the benefits of the next method I'm going to show you, which is the Luhmannian, bib card method, is that instead of your observations being locked away inside the book, you are going to be able to put them all on one card so that you can later on go through the book and just, find the material, for instance, of any book you read, and just almost like review your entire book on just one card like this, instead of it being locked into many different pages within the book. So that then introduces us to the final extraction method that I want to share with you. And of course, there's probably more. There's, simpler conventions of doing marginalia, and there's highlighting and stuff like that. But the ultimate one that I found to be best, and it takes some practice, is the Luhmannian bib card method, and I've talked about this at length. Essentially, when you're reading, you note the page number that you have the observation, the thought, and then in a very brief way, you essentially put the idea that came to mind. And this, essentially, I like the idea of thinking of these as a staging card. You're staging these thoughts so that after your reading session, you then go to main card in your main notes, and then you can fully process it and fully develop it out in the way that it needs to be or deserves to be developed out. Also, you don't have to turn every single one of these observation notes and bib notes into an actual main note. And the cool thing is because you've like extracted this and put it on like an actual, dedicated bib card, it also gives you the sense that, okay, well, if I choose not to turn this into a main card right now, it doesn't mean that I don't ever have the option of developing this into a main card. So you can let things simmer and ruminate for a while. So that is the Luhmannian bib card method. And I talk about this in great detail in my book. And I just wanted to share this with you and share this example with you. So hopefully this gives you some ideas, and I'd love to see in the comments below what your experiences have been in your various ways of extracting material out of the books that you read. Anyway, love and sharing all this stuff with you. Appreciate the support, and let's continue this freaking analog knowledge development revolution. Peace and love, my fellow anti-knitters. Bye-bye now.